Hi everyone, I'm Kira.
And I'm Dhruv.
And I'm Saud.
And welcome to the first official podcast of STEMatica. STEMatica is a podcast where we go into STEM, computer science, engineering, and everything in between.
We're so excited that you're here for our first episode. To make sure that you never miss an episode that we have in the future, make sure to follow us on all our social medias. You can use our username at STEMatica or you can check out our campsite link, which is here on Spotify or whatever platform that you're listening on.
Let's dive into our first topic, and it's going to be about computer science as a whole in high school, its benefits, its downfalls, and what could be changed about it. So to start, Kira, what do you think is the best and worst parts about learning computer science in high school versus outside of school?
Yeah, I think this is a really cool thing to talk about, especially because high school is supposed to be the place where we learn everything to prepare us for college and for our future. But I think right now, especially with the fact that even the courses like APCS, it's all Java related, and there are a lot other languages that we should learn, like Python or some other type of languages. And I think that's something that I think computer science definitely fails in the school system, is because there are so many other things besides just Java or just those types of courses that we should be learning in high school.
I also personally agree, because computer science is so vast and there's so much more to learn than just the Java programming language. We could be learning, Python or web development with HTML and JavaScript and all of that, and that's just not offered in high school.
Yeah, and even if you wanted to learn something else, it's just I also think that there should be more options for that. If you want to learn Java, then I think there should be some curriculum assigned to that. But I also think that there should be opportunities to learn web development, Python, all these different types of things. Maybe more a computer science class that's more open to allowing the students learn what they want to learn, instead of just this one strict language of Java that doesn't necessarily end up being used by everyone,
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I feel like we're not being taught the things that we might actually be able to use. Although Java is very useful in certain ways, it isn't to be kind of blunt, it isn't one of the higher paying in terms of languages. Though it is good to learn with, it is a good introduction to object-oriented programming. Python could be better. In fact, I have seen you even mentioned web development. There is a class, I think it's a newer class, I'm not entirely sure, but it's been at our school for a while, called Principles. It has computer science in it, obviously, but it's more of a web development, JavaScript type course. And I know of a friend who goes to a school in North Houston where he was taught Python in his pre-AP class. And I was like, what? Why didn't we learn this? He said that his school wanted him to learn Python, even though it wasn't on the AP test, even though it wouldn't, help him in any of the college application. Not it wouldn't help him, but it's not a necessity. They just felt that, yeah, it's definitely better to do this. And to be honest, I think that we could have benefited from that as well, thinking of it, because Python is so much better than Java in terms of its true application, its job opportunity, and the fact that it's newer in comparison to a 25-year-old language. There's a lot more things you could do with Python, in my personal opinion, than with Java.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Java is just a lot outdated, especially considering most tech companies now, they don't really use Java, or even there are so many new languages like Jython, which is a combination of Java and Python, or even just HTML, and all these different new languages that are being consistently more and more used rather than Java. And Java is such a static language, so it takes a long time to learn. And I understand why it might be a good starting language, but I think that as we bridge into more complex stuff in high school, when we do more computational projects and stuff, I think there should be a lot more emphasis on learning, catering to a student's ability rather than just having this one static curriculum. And I think that's an issue with school in general, but specifically can be highlighted with the CS curriculum within APCS and Principles or pre-AP and fundamentals as well.
So I partially agree. I don't necessarily agree that Java is super outdated and stuff. It has been getting a bunch of updates. What I do agree about though is that we should be able to learn like languages that we want to. Like, for example, if we want to learn Python, then we should be allowed to say, hey, I want to take like a Python course in high school. So although I don't agree that Java is like really irrelevant, I do agree that we should be learning a multitude.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not to say that like Java can't be offered, but I think that like other languages should also be emphasis. Like there should be more opportunities for a student to like, if they want to learn Java and like they want to get like at least some credit for it in their high school, then that should be an opportunity for them rather than just your only CS class that you could take is Java. Like that's the only option for you. Whereas like it's for some people, they don't want to learn Java, you want to learn Python or something else or HTML. And I think that there should be more leniency, I suppose, when it comes to like learning languages in CS class.
When before I joined like high school CS, when I was in 8th grade, we were handed this like packet, right? It has like a lot of courses listed under CS, right? Has the specific ones that I wanted to take were game design, principles, AP, and and mobile app dev. See, what I thought was, all right, we're learning mobile app dev on iPads and iOS, so that's probably gonna be learning Swift and Xcode using Macs. Learning game design, probably gonna be using Unity, C#. Now, although I'm sure that those classes are offered in other schools in our district, which, as you may know, are a lot better than our school in terms of, I guess, to be blunt, they get more awards in computer science competitions than we do. And because of that, I'm sure they have all the courses, but we don't get to learn C# or Swift or Xcode and iOS dev, and we don't get the opportunity to learn about all these fields. What we're taught is in pre-AP, which most people take pre-AP, then principles, and then drop out of computer science, in high school at least. But in pre-AP, the most popular class, for computer science in high school, we learn the basicest, weirdest stuff, like what is a motherboard, binary, things like doubles and floats. And I feel that it isn't as useful as if we learned, all right, iOS development, here's how to make an app, or how to make a game, how to use Xcode to develop on an older app, I feel like our time could be a lot better used.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that that's a really good point to make. And this kind of leads into like our second topic that we were going to discuss, which is how like different coding classes like CS3 and other classes are being removed from district guidelines across, like, I think this is like a nationwide problem. And I think this is something just like to keep in consideration, like for people that are listening and don't really know like what this problem is say, for instance, in our personal district, in like the pathway of computer science that was constructed before was fundamentals, pre-AP, AP, and then there's a third class called CS3, and that's like the most advanced class. And there's also some other classes that were like optional and that students can take as well, like Dream said, which is like game development and all these other classes. But these are slowly being removed by our district. Like, for example, CS3 is not being offered at our campus next year, and a lot of other like different types of classes. And this is like an issue that I've seen actually is happening all across like the nation. In a lot of schools, like that's what's being removed. And instead of removing CS classes, theoretically we should be adding more of them, because CS is becoming more and more relevant by the day. Because if we look at all these tech companies, like what they need, we need more computer scientists, and computer science should be something that everyone learns. And so Sud, what do you think about the whole like dilemma of like CS3 and other classes going away?
So I really think that CS3 going away is kind of just signifying, like, it's kind of it shouldn't be happening, and instead, like as you said, the reverse should be happening, that more CS classes should be being added in. Because right now, like as you said, like I think computer science is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing industry, like here in the US. So I really think that there needs to be more attention brought to like these CS classes, and like there needs to be more of a variety, kind of like what I was saying earlier, and how you should be able to learn like a multitude of languages and like be able to learn what you want, not just be forced into like learning Java. And then on top of that, even if you are forced into learning Java, now you can't even learn like more advanced Java, like even removing like the CS3 class, and who knows, maybe even in the future they'll remove like the AP computer science class. Like I just think like it's really bad, and there needs to be something done about that.
Yeah, and I don't think that like these extra classes are hard to make. Like theoretically, like if we added a like class like CS3, the curriculum should be pretty similar. Just like if not, like just adding more stuff about Java, and like it's not difficult to make computer science curriculums. And I think that like everyone should learn computer science because it's such an important thing, no matter where you are. Like whether you're medical related or whether you're planning on majoring in like pre-law, like there's so many different applications like computer science can like affect you in whatever like major you're planning on going into. So I think that like we should continue to like push more computer science curriculum, especially in schools. And I think computer science should be something that's more and more required rather than just being diminished. What do you think, Drew?
I think that like you were saying, like it's you like Sue was saying, it's like the growing industry, and what you're saying is how we should be adding more classes instead of taking them away. Especially with this class that I mentioned, like the more niche classes about iOS dev or game development. I feel like those two things, although they might not be the most, actually iOS dev definitely is like a very career changing sort of, like you can base your career off that class. Game dev, not as much. Sure, you could get a job at like Gameloft or Gluku, I think it's called. I haven't played mobile games in a long time. But if you get, one of those jobs, obviously it'd be a very, comparable job to iOS dev or ML, which is like what Python is mostly used for ML and AI. And we think about it, the richest company, not richest company, but the richest person in the world, Elon Musk, is the CEO of Tesla. Tesla really would not be here today if it wasn't because of the self-driving features, and that is purely, not purely, but mostly based off of artificial intelligence and camera systems and AI. I said that, but what am I doing? But I feel like we could be learning that instead of about doubles and how you can use an array list to store numbers.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point to make, especially considering the fact that, like what we were talking about earlier, like there's so much more to computer science than just Java. Like there's AI, there's cybersecurity, there's Python, there's other languages. Like there's so much more, and that's like kind of the idea that like computer science shouldn't just be the static curriculum that like every year Java, and like there's so many other things that you can do. And I think it's not hard to make curriculum like that. Like I said earlier, it's just people that are making these computer science curriculum, they're not thinking outside the box. They're just like, we're gonna do what we've done for 30 years, which is teaching Java to kids. And I don't think that that's relevant as it was in 1990, because we're in a modern age where there are different types of technology that should be discussed in the classrooms. So
yeah, I definitely agree. And I think like learning how to use an array list and stuff like that is pretty important. Like it's kind of a fundamental, but I agree that there's also lots of other things that are quite useless. Like let's be honest, you never really are going to use binary while you're like coding. Like sure, it might be nice to know, and it might be nice like to know how like your code works and like behind the scenes, I guess you could say, but it's not really that important. And like that kind of brings us to our next topic of how much more efficient is a outside course better than the high school courses that are being taught today. Like I know that personally I took like a Java master class on Udemy, and that class helped me a lot. Like I learned a lot of the stuff that I was learning in AP Computer Science. That course really helped me learn those topics, and it kind of honed in that stuff for me. So like, what do you guys think? Just like courses in general.
Well, courses outside of school, I feel like what you specifically mentioned, how array lists and like floats and doubles, they're like fundamentals. But courses outside of school, I know there are different types of them. The one that you showed me, the one that you talked about, I know that's like more of a supplement, but the ones that I've taken, which are more like workshops or like an hour-long course-ish, YouTube videos and such, those are more like, I'm going to teach you one part of this language, memorize that, and you'll be able to make all this. So I feel like we have different perspectives on it, just because I've done more project-based and you've done more like school supplement based. But
Yeah.
Kira, like, have you ever taken any sort of like outside of school course for computer science?
Yeah, I have taken a few different courses. I started a Java master course that Sue actually recommended to me, but I also took a Python class because I did an actual real world instance of an internship that was strictly Python, and I think that that's something that I've been noticing a lot more is like we talked about earlier, because the schools in America or in our nation in general aren't like focusing on CS in classes, and they're just making this static curriculum of Java, which isn't necessarily useful for students who want to major in this thing. Say for instance, there are so many different internships for high school students that are interested in computer science, and they're in different languages, and that makes the students have to learn that on their own. And I think that that's a really weird thing, because the whole point of school is to prepare us for our lives, and if in our lives and our actual usefulness we're not using the things we learn in school, then what's the point of actually learning it in school, And I think that that's why those online courses like Udemy are becoming more and more used, but that doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that the real problem at hand is the school systems. But Udemy is just right now being used as a solution to that, and it shouldn't be a solution,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So
yeah, I personally believe it shouldn't be a solution, but not because it shouldn't be that not because you should be able to learn things online, but because the problem that exists that you can't even learn computer science in school, that problem shouldn't exist. So I believe that the school systems really need to be revamped so that that problem doesn't exist and you can just learn what you want.
I think right now Udemy and courses like that, supplements to school, are being used by students as sort of a short-term solution to the real problem at hand, which is the way that our school systems are handling computer science. That is the real issue. Udemy and all these different types of supplement courses, they're being used by students as these short-term solutions. But in reality, unless we fix the underlying problem of how computer science is being fixed, we're gonna have to keep relying on these short-term solutions rather than handling the problem at hand. And I think this is something that should be talked about more, should be advocated for more. You don't really see this type of advocacy happening for more computer science in classrooms. It's more of larger scale issues, but I still think this is a pretty big issue, especially for even thinking about where America stands. Right now we're sort of seen as this beacon of the world, one of the top world countries, and we're not going to stay that way if we continue to be static in our development of computer science. And computer science is, in countries like India, China, is continuously rapidly increasing, rather than America's isn't as increasing as quickly. And the reason for that is because of the way that it's handled in computer science in high school. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I feel like the rates of I guess development that we're doing with our school system is severely lacking in comparison to East Asia or Europe. Because when you think about it, a couple years ago, I remember I watched this video, this documentary type video on education system, and I think Denmark, and they don't have multiple choice questions, and they're smarter than us, and they claim that's why. And I mean, obviously that's not the direct answer to this exact problem, but the fact that they are doing something better than us, we should probably learn from that and fix our school system. Because I mean, our nationwide rates of getting into college, rates of graduating, it's lacking in comparison, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the school systems in general needs to be reformed, but I think that specifically talking about computer science, the only way we're gonna America retains its place as, I guess, world leader is if we rapidly change the way that computer science is done. And that's specifically with keeping up with other large tech companies. And think about it this, there are tech companies, a lot of tech companies that are based out of the United States, and right now the main companies that are based in the United States are Microsoft and other different tech companies, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay that way. There are actually a lot of tech companies that are based in countries like India, because there are a lot more computer scientists available there for cheaper amounts, and that's why I think America needs to focus more on computer science in like the schools, because otherwise like we're just going to be passed on by other countries.
Yeah. So, Sood, what do you think would be like the perfect solution for all these like problems that we stated?
So I truly don't believe that there's any like perfect solution. Like if there's a perfect solution, then that solution probably has been found. But I think that just us like as high schoolers, you know, going into college and then getting like computer science jobs, just taking like more proactive roles and like, you know, pushing like education reform, or like maybe like going to our local school board and like, you know, I'm not sure if you enroll in the school board or you join it or whatever the correct verb is, just like, you know, participating in your school board and trying to push active like CS reform and bringing new courses, not removing like old ones and stuff like that. I think like that would be the best way to stop basically like the CS education crisis that's kind of happening right now.
Yeah, I think that we all need to to anyone that's listening to this, take a more active role in helping reform our school systems, specifically with computer science. And I think that's something that we can all do. We can all help ourselves with and help advocate and truly reform our systems.
I remember our school tried to do this. We made like one of those change.org petitions, which by the way, change.org is useless, never accomplished anything. But we made a petition to keep CS3 because the main thing that I cared about was like the Java test you get at the end, but obviously, you know, learning Java is kind of important too, just to get an understanding of it. But we failed. It's still going away.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Alright guys, well it seems like this is a good wrapping point. So I hope you all enjoyed and we'll see you next Saturday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.